The escape pod's impact had carved a smoking crater into the crimson soil of Keth-7, a world that existed in the galactic database with a single notation, incompatible with sentient habitation. William checked his survival scanner as emergency foam sealed the hull breach behind him. 72 hours of oxygen, maybe less. Maya's last transmission crackled through his damaged comm unit. "William, the ship's gone. I'm in pod 47. If you're alive, stay alive. I'll find you." He stepped onto alien ground and immediately understood why Keth-7 was marked in red. The atmosphere was breathable but thick with spores that made his lungs burn. The vegetation, if it could be called that, pulsed with bioluminescent rhythms, creating shadows that seemed to move with predatory intent. In the distance, something howled. The sound was answered by a dozen others, each from a different direction. Most species would have activated a distress beacon and waited for rescue. But humans had earned their reputation across the galaxy through a peculiar trait: they built. William surveyed his resources. The pod had yielded a fabrication kit, 3 days of rations, a plasma cutter, and a medical synthesizer. Standard survival gear. He also had something the escape pod designers hadn't anticipated: the geological survey equipment he'd been carrying when the ship exploded. By nightfall, he'd selected his location, a rocky outcrop near a thermal vent, defensible and elevated. The vent's heat signature would mask his own from infrared hunters. The rocks would provide raw materials. The first predator approached within hours. It was hexapodal, covered in chitinous plates, with mandibles that could shear through titanium. It circled the outcrop, testing, probing. William didn't hide. Instead, he activated the plasma cutter and carved a warning line into the rock, the superheated stone creating a barrier of molten material. The creature's thermal sensors recoiled. It watched him for another hour before retreating. William didn't sleep, he worked. By the second day, the camp had begun to take shape. Using the geological survey equipment, he'd identified mineral deposits and begun extracting them. The fabrication kit, designed for emergency repairs, was repurposed. He printed compression tools, then used those to create better tools. Each generation of equipment allowed for more sophisticated construction. He built a perimeter first, not a wall but a network of resonance pylons. He'd analyzed the predator's hunting patterns from the previous night. They communicated through subsonic frequencies. His pylons disrupted those frequencies, creating zones of acoustic confusion. The predators could approach, but their pack coordination would fail within 50 meters. The second night brought more visitors, 4 different species, each testing his defenses. One flew, its wingspan blocking out the moon. Another burrowed, emerging inside his perimeter before the pylons drove it back. William documented each encounter, adjusting his defenses with each attack. He was wounded, a glancing blow from a barbed tail that the medical synthesizer barely managed to treat, but the camp held. On the third day, William's oxygen timer read 18 hours. He'd extended it by scrubbing CO2 through a chemical process he'd improvised using local minerals, but he was approaching the limit. Maya's pod could be anywhere on this continent-sized landmass. That's when he made a decision that would have horrified any other species. He expanded. The acoustic pylons had proven effective, so he printed more, extending his safe zone to 100 meters. Within that space, he began construction of what the other species would later call the impossible structure. Using principles of biomimicry, he studied the predator's natural armor and replicated the composite materials. His walls grew, not from imported resources but from the planet itself. He turned Keth-7 hostility into his building blocks. The thermal vent became a power source. He tapped into it with heat-resistant piping fabricated from printed components, creating a geothermal generator. With power, his options expanded exponentially. Lights blazed from the camp, a beacon of defiance on a world of darkness. The predators noticed. By the fourth day, oxygen now supplemented by an algae-based system he'd cultivated from pond scum. The camp had become an anomaly. The local ecosystem, millions of years old, had achieved equilibrium. Predators hunted, prey adapted, territory was respected. Then a human arrived and rewrote the rules. The largest predators came. William designated them apex class in his logs. They were intelligent, these creatures. They didn't simply attack, they strategized. One feinted from the north while others probed the south. They tested his acoustic barriers by sending juveniles, learning from their disorientation. William adapted faster. He created a new defense, harmonic weapons, not to kill but to communicate. He'd studied their subsonic language. Now he spoke it, broadcasting dominance frequencies that marked the camp as the territory of something greater than any individual predator. The message was clear: this space is claimed. Challenge it and face something you cannot comprehend. The apex predators withdrew, but they watched. On the seventh day, Maya's voice crackled through his calm. "William, I've got a visual on a structure. How is there a structure on Keth 7? "That would be me," William replied. "I'll guide you in, watch for the lights." When her pod descended through the cloud layer, she saw what had become legend in the making. A human camp that covered 5 acres, with walls that gleamed with alien composites, towers that hummed with acoustic defense, and at the center, a geothermal power station that could run for decades. The predators of Keth 7 had learned to give it wide berth, their hunting patterns now routing around what they recognized as the territory of an apex predator beyond their classification. Maya landed in the designated zone, stepping out to find William, gaunt, exhausted but very much alive. The camp around them was more than survival, it was transformation. "How?" she asked, staring at the sophisticated infrastructure. William smiled, the expression of a man who'd proven something fundamental. "I built. That's what we do." In orbit, the rescue ship's sensors struggled to explain the readings. A thriving settlement on a planet that had killed every expedition sent to it. The captain, a Vrelian with 40 years of experience, simply noted in his log, "Human behavior remains paradoxical. Subject William Chen did not survive Keth 7. He conquered it." Maya looked around at the camp, at the prowling predators that now treated it as forbidden ground, at the human who had turned a death sentence into a home. "Command wanted us to activate beacons and wait for rescue," she said. William nodded toward his workshop, where a new generation of tools was already being fabricated. "We're human. We don't wait, we build." And on Keth 7, in a camp that would become the foundation of the first human colony on a death world, the predators watched and learned a new truth. When humans are left where only creatures survive, they don't merely endure. They transform the world itself.